The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Using Instagram to Grow Your Farm Business. My name is Margot Hale, and I'm the Southeast Regional Director at the National Center for Appropriate Technology, more commonly known as NCAT. NCAT is a national nonprofit organization with 6 regional offices across the country. We work on issues pertaining to sustainable agriculture, sustainable energy, and sustainable communities. Today's webinar will teach you how to set up and manage an Instagram page to help you grow your farm business. It will cover the basics of setting up an Instagram account from scratch, creating stunning photos and videos for your feed, engaging with followers and other businesses, advertising, and tools for managing multiple accounts and scheduling posts. NCAT agriculture specialist Luke Freeman and Lauren Manning, partner at Ozark Pasture Beef, will be sharing with us today. This webinar is being broadcast by NCAT, presented in partnership with the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture, University of Arkansas Poultry Science, and USDA ARS Poultry Production and Product Safety Unit, and is funded by a grant from USDA's Small and Medium-Sized Farms Grant. Today's presentation will be about an hour long, and we'll follow it up with time for questions from you folks who are attending. As you're listening, you can type in any questions you might have in the questions box on your screen. I'll compile them and have Luke and Lauren answer as many as we have time for following their presentation. Please don't hesitate to ask questions during the webinar. Chances are we won't be able to get to all of them during the webinar, but Luke, Lauren, or other NCAT sustainable agriculture experts will get back to you about your questions via email in the days to come. And the next hour or so isn't the only chance for you to ask questions. The webinar is being recorded and will be available on NCAT's ATTRA webpage, www.attra.ncat.org. There's a feature on the page, Ask an Ag Expert, where you can send us emails with any questions you may have, or you might want to call our Sustainable Ag Helpline number, 800-346-9140. We welcome your questions on any sustainable ag subject, not just today's webinar. And it's worth mentioning that it's a free service. If you didn't get that phone number or web address, don't worry. We'll have it on screen at the end of the webinar. Also, before we begin, I just want to remind our viewers to take a few minutes to complete the survey for today's webinar. When the webinar is over and you sign out, you'll get the survey right away. The survey will help us improve our webinars in the future, and we appreciate your taking part in it. A bit about today's presenters. Luke is a horticulture specialist for NCAT, where he assists growers and leads trainings on fruit and vegetable production, marketing, and food safety. Luke and his wife Natalie own a small farm in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and they use social media extensively to share their story and communicate with customers. They raise eggs, vegetables, and cut flowers on their farm, which they market out of their general store in town. Lauren Manning is an agricultural law professor at the University of Arkansas and a partner at Ozark Pasture Beef, where she manages their social media marketing. Ozark Pasture Beef raises grass-fed beef, lamb, and goat, which they direct market to consumers and restaurants throughout Northwest Arkansas. I will now turn things over to Luke.
Thanks, Margot. We can go to the next slide. So to give you an outline of the webinar today, we're going to start by giving you an introduction to Instagram and talk about the different features on Instagram. Then Lauren is going to talk for a bit about setting up a farm profile on Instagram and some tips on engaging with users. I'll hop back on and talk about advertising and selling products on Instagram. And then lastly, Lauren's going to finish up by giving you some tools for managing multiple social media accounts and scheduling posts ahead of time. And so this is the third webinar in our series on social media marketing for farms. And you can view our previous recorded webinars at attra.ncat.org/video. And I'd also like to mention that these webinars are part of a project funded by a USDA grant in collaboration with University of Arkansas Poultry Science Department and ARS. And one of the outputs of this project was a workbook on how to use social media for your farm business. And we'll be talking more about what's in that workbook and where to access that workbook in future slides in this webinar. Next slide. So for those of you who haven't been able to join us for previous webinars, just want to give you a little bit of background about myself. As Margot mentioned, I'm a horticulture specialist with NCAT, and then my wife and I own a small farm right outside of Fayetteville called Freckled Hen Farm. So both Natalie and I have been using Instagram for several years and used it quite extensively to grow our customer base, as we were starting our farm, and also as we were starting our general store, Freckled Hen Farmhouse. We used Instagram for marketing extensively and continue to use it to reach our customers and market products. So we have a unique situation with how we set up our farm on Instagram. We use the hashtag Freckled Hen Farm for our farm photos, since both Natalie and I post farm photos on our personal pages. So I'm on Instagram at LukeFreeperson. Natalie's on Instagram at NatalieCreates. And then we'll tag a photo with the hashtag Freckled Hen Farm, so people can see all the photos of our farm. We have a business profile set up for our general store, Freckled Hen Farmhouse. And Lauren is going to talk to you more in depth about setting up an Instagram business profile for your farm. Next slide. So why use Instagram? There are so many social media options out there. Why should you consider this one? Well, Instagram is very complementary to Facebook. So if you're already on Facebook, this is a great second social media platform to get on. It integrates very easily with Facebook. It's actually owned by Facebook. So if you have a business profile on Facebook, or you're going to be setting that up, it's quite easy to add Instagram and sync those two accounts so you can manage them both quite easily. It's complementary in the sense that it's a very visual platform, and people tend to come to Instagram, for the photos and videos, for the visuals, and farms, make great content for Instagram photos and videos. So what we find is Instagram is really popular among young people, especially foodies, locavores, those who support local farmers. So it's a great way to reach that kind of demographic that is going to support your farm, whether or not you're selling at a farmer's market, to CSAs, or to local restaurants. It's a great way to engage with that audience. As I mentioned, it's a very visual platform, so it's great for visual storytelling. So if this is something you're inclined to, if you enjoy photography, videography, if you like visuals, this is a really great platform to be able to tell your farm story and reach customers. We also find that it provides a very intimate way for customers to get to know your farm family. We'll talk about some features of Instagram, including Instagram stories, but you're able to kind of curate both a feed and then some kind of behind the scenes content that really lets people get to know you and build that brand loyalty so that they'll return to your farm stand and be a loyal customer. It's also currently a less crowded space than Facebook. It's growing in popularity, and every day there are more and more advertisers on Instagram, but still it's not as crowded as Facebook. So it's a really good way to cut through the noise, deliver content directly to those who are following you, and differentiate your farm. Next slide. So who's on Instagram? Who would you reach by starting a farm profile on Instagram? So currently, 35% of American adults are on the platform, and the audience does skew younger, with 64% of 18 to 29-year-olds on Instagram, only 40% of 30 to 49-year-olds, and then it really drops off with age groups above that. The audience does skew urban, and there are more female users on Instagram, which actually plays to your advantage, considering the fact that, for the most part, most of your customers are going to be female. Most users visit Instagram daily and are looking for fresh content. So this is something to note when you're thinking about getting into Instagram. It's important that you're posting content on a daily or every other day basis. Another thing about Instagram is you do tend to reach a more national audience as opposed to Facebook, where you're reaching a very local audience on Facebook. On Instagram, you tend to develop a following that's not necessarily in your specific geographic location. And you tend to develop audiences clustered around common interests. So people might find you if they're looking for Instagram accounts of organic farms, local foods, grass-fed beef, etc. So this is something to be aware of on Instagram. Even though you might have, say, 1,000 followers, those 1,000 followers might not be in your specific market area. They might be scattered across the U.S. So that is something to keep in mind. Next slide. All right, so now I want to talk for a little bit about the different features of Instagram. Primarily, there's the Instagram feed. This is how Instagram started off, is a way to post photos with captions. You can also post videos on your feed, videos up to 30 seconds. And then with the photos, you can post either a single photo or multiple photos that people will scroll through. And then you post a caption below that where you can tag other Instagram users, you can use hashtags, and then users can then comment on that photo, and that's a good way to interact with users. So on the feed, this is the public face. This is the curated version of your public-facing Instagram account. You want some high-quality, beautiful photos that are thematically related. It's very important that it's a curated feed where all the photos, are really about your farm, related to your farm business, what you're selling, maybe some photos of your farm family. But it's very important when you're, posting photos on your feed that you make sure that they all are related to your farm operation. Next slide. Now, another feature of Instagram are Instagram stories. This is relatively new. They added this based on the popularity of Snapchat. So, similar to Snapchat, these Instagram stories will disappear after 24 hours. So how Instagram users usually use Instagram stories is it's more of a behind the scenes, more candid, look at the business operations. So they can either be still photos or 15-second videos that you post. What you'll find is, a lot of people will kind of post videos maybe of harvesting, of animals, crazy things that happen on the farm. That's a great thing to post on your Instagram stories. Funny moments. It's a great way to just, express what life is like on the farm. Show that to your followers. And what I found is Instagram stories is a great way to get a lot of interaction with your followers. So it's very easy for people to comment on your stories. I find that I actually get more comments on Instagram stories than the actual photos I post in my Instagram feed. People really love kind of seeing these quick shots, behind the scenes images of the farm. And so, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Instagram app, if you're on Instagram, it's that top left icon. You can see that camera circled in the screenshot. So that's how you get to Instagram stories. Then from there, you can snap a photo or record a video and add text on top of that. And then on your profile, you can see in the screenshot here, I've circled the different curated stories. So you can essentially save a story so that viewers can be able to see it for more than 24 hours. And on my profile, I have Instagram stories on garden harvest, pest control, garden tips. And so then users can click on that story and go through those stories in that collection. So that's another way to kind of curate what people see when they go to your farm Instagram feed. Next slide. Some newer features of Instagram are Instagram Live and Instagram TV. So Instagram Live is a lot like Facebook Live. It's live video where you can interact with the audience. Audience can essentially comment in real time. You can respond to those comments. This is something that's good to announce ahead of time. So that your followers can plan to tune in at a specific time. They can see it live. They can be interacting with you. This would be good for a farm tour. Maybe asking frequently asked questions about your farming operation. Explaining why you do things, why you rotate your livestock on pasture, etc. And then there's Instagram TV, which was created to post longer videos. So videos on Instagram TV can be up to 60 minutes. And I grabbed a screenshot of one Instagram account, farm in California, Five Marys Farm. They posted an Instagram TV video of shearing sheep. So it was a 3-minute video, too long for their Instagram page, their Instagram feed. So they did an Instagram TV post. Next slide. So what's the downside of Instagram? Like anything, it takes time and effort. I would recommend you try to post at least once per day, the very minimum, once every other day. Instagram stories, you can post more frequently. As I mentioned, this is more of a candid behind the scenes look at your farm. And in terms of how much time to budget, you're looking at 30 to 60 minutes per day, taking photos, editing the photos, posting them, responding to comments. Definitely need good photography skills. And if you want to learn more about taking good photos, we talk about that in more depth in the first webinar that we recorded on social media marketing for farms, which you can go to the NCAT website and view. A smartphone with a good camera really is a must-have for Instagram. It's not quite possible to manage your Instagram profile on a desktop or laptop computer. You really need a smartphone with a good camera. Something to consider, a bad Instagram feed is worse than no feed. So, I would wait till you have the availability to really, give it a good try before getting your Instagram started. And it's free to get started on Instagram. You may need to pay money if you want to advertise and grow your audience, which we'll talk about more later. Next slide. So understanding the algorithm, every social media platform has a slightly different algorithm. For Instagram, the algorithm prioritizes what users see, based on previous interest. So if they interact with your posts on a regular basis, they're more likely to see it. So, a tip in that regards is to post content that's going to solicit comments from your readers. So maybe asking questions, asking for feedback, or at least posting a post that's going to get an emotional response and people are going to want to comment on that. Instagram has said that there's no preference placed on personal over business accounts. So you shouldn't lose followers or lose views by converting from a personal account to a business account for your farm. Next slide. And then lastly, some strategies for growing your audience. Hashtags are commonly used on Instagram, and this is a good way for new users to find you, to find your farm photos, to find your content on Instagram. So, currently there are trending hashtags like flower farmer, grow your own food. You can see the grow your own food hashtag has over 1 million posts. So by using popular hashtags like that, it's more likely that users are going to find your content because they can search trending hashtags or even follow a hashtag and then see your content if you use that hashtag in one of your posts. Also, it's very important to follow and interact with other local businesses and other influencers in your area. And a tip here is if you really need to put some effort into growing your Instagram audience, reaching out to a local influencer, someone with a large Instagram following, maybe donating a CSA membership or donating some of your produce or some of your product to them, have them highlight your product, post about it, share that with their followers, and encourage their followers to follow you. So, that kind of social networking on Instagram can be very effective. And also by syncing your Instagram profile with your Facebook profile for your farm business, you can help connect with your Facebook audience that you've developed on Facebook. Next slide.
Hi, everybody. My name's Lauren Manning, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about setting up a business account and some other things. But first, by way of introduction, I am a farmer at Ozark Pasture Beef. We're a partnership of farmers. I'm a beginning farmer. I don't come from a farm family. So it's been kind of interesting from a social media standpoint to think about how consumers perceive farming and then how to translate what we do on the farm in a way that they understand. And if you're thinking to yourself, oh, social media is not something that my customers care about, think twice about that, because we've gotten so many questions and interest and engagement just by posting even simple educational posts on Facebook and Instagram. I also teach agricultural law classes at the U of A on a bunch of different topics and work on a grant project involving farming. Next slide. So first, I'm going to talk to you about why you should consider setting up a business page. And Instagram allows you to have a personal account, just a regular old basic account, but they recently rolled out a new feature where you can set your page up as a business. And there's some really important key reasons that you're going to want to consider doing this. First and foremost, it's free. It's not going to cost you anything, and it really doesn't take that much time. I'm going to walk you through the process in a few slides, and you'll see that probably in 20 minutes or so, you can convert to a business page and have it set up. It looks more professional. It makes it seem like you actually are an official business, and it's not just you selling things out of your home, that you have a big enough following to be considered a business. So it gives you more of a professional outward appearance, which some people really want when they're looking at buying from local farms. It keeps your personal and professional life separate. If you're someone who's been hesitant about social media because you don't like sharing a lot of your personal life, this is a great option for you. You can keep a personal account set to private so that only people you approve can follow you, but then you can have an account for your farm that's open to the public where you control what they see. You don't have to post pictures of your kids or anything like that. You can keep it strictly to the content that you're comfortable with. And then it also gives you access to a lot of really great statistics. It's going to show you which people like your post the most, when the peak hours of engagement with your posts are. It's going to allow you to do targeted ads and promotions. So there's a lot of really neat tools that could end up helping you down the line. And that may be stuff that's a little daunting to you at this point, so you don't have to dig right into it. So even if you just want to switch to a business page and then slowly start exploring these other features, that's totally fine. Next slide. If you have a web page set up, it's going to help drive more traffic to that website. On the business page profile for Instagram, it has a place right up at the top where you put your website in. It makes it easy for people to tap on it and go straight to your website. If you have a Facebook business page, you can also link your Instagram business page to your Facebook business page, and it really streamlines a lot of things when it comes to posting. I usually post directly to Instagram and have Instagram share it directly to our Facebook business page, and that cuts things in half time-wise. It also allows you to add links on Instagram stories. Luke talked about these a little bit, but I can also vouch for the fact that these are super popular. People really seem to like them, and if you're a business account, you can add a link to your story that people can tap on. It can direct them somewhere else, which is super helpful. Some people, based on the algorithm or based on their user habits, might not actually see what you post, but they might see your Instagram story. So it's really just one more way to catch a new customer, catch some additional engagement. Next slide. So how to set up a business account? Well, first you already have to have an Instagram account. So if you don't have one yet, go ahead and set up just a very basic account, and Instagram will walk you through the prompts. It's really user-friendly. When it comes to an account name, try and use your farm name. And if someone's already taken your farm name, then try and add just a really short distinguisher, like, you know, if your farm's in Arkansas, put the name of your farm and then AR at the end, something that's really kind of easy but still uniquely identifies you. Here's the information you're going to need to switch to a business account. This is stuff that you probably already have handy. Your contact information and business hours, a really short, sweet description about your farm and who you are. And the description that we use is a partnership of family farms raising 100% grass-fed, pasture-raised beef, lamb, and goat in Northwest Arkansas. A link to your website if you have one. If you don't, that's totally fine. You can still set up a business account. And the login information for your Facebook page if you're going to connect it, which I highly suggest you do. And if you're anything like me, you forget every single password you've ever created. So it can be a little frustrating when it prompts you to link your Facebook page to have to try and remember what that password is. So I try and find that stuff before I go through the setup process. Next slide. So after you set up your basic account, you're going to be taken to your home page, and Instagram is really user-friendly. If Facebook overwhelms you, then you're probably going to like Instagram because there's a lot fewer menus, buttons, options, and ways to navigate through it. Instagram really only has a few different screens and platforms. So to switch to a business account, the first thing you're going to do is tap on your little user icon down at the bottom right corner. Next slide. It's going to take you to your profile showing you all your posts, and you probably don't have any posts at this point yet. And there's three little dots up at the top, and that's where you can find your preferences and setup for Instagram. So tap on those three little dots. Next slide. You're going to scroll down until you see switch to a business profile, and from here it's extremely user-friendly. Next slide. It's going to welcome you to your new business tools, and you're going to click that continue button and then walk through the next few menu screens and just follow the prompts. Next slide. Once it's fully converted, you're going to want to edit your profile and kind of personalize it to make it look like it's a fully functioning profile that somebody checks and uses on a regular basis. So tap edit profile. Next slide. This is where you're going to fill out information that you collected before you started this process, including your name, your username, website, and bio, and then your private information. And that stays private. That's not something that they share. That's simply a phone number that they associate with your account in case they need to get a hold of you or there's any issues. So once you have that info in there, you can tap done up at the top right. Next slide. Here's an example of how I'd fill it out. This is a fictitious farm I created called Boots to Roots Farm. And you can see we have a very simple name. The username matches it. We've got our website there, and then a really short and sweet description of who we are, what we produce, and where we produce it. Those are kind of the three key things you want to grasp in your description. The name of your farm, where you're located, and what you produce. Next slide. So there you can see it all fully filled out. And at the top right, you'll notice there's some new buttons that you didn't see before on your basic account. And those are where you get access to statistics and promotions and other things that Luke's going to talk about in a little bit. Next slide. So once you have your business account set up, it's really important to start posting. If someone went to your account right now, they might think, oh, nobody uses this, or this is brand new, or they might not really understand what's going on. So the sooner you can kind of fill it out with a few posts, whether you post twice a day for a week or just go ahead and post a whole bunch to get a gallery starting, that's really up to you. But I think there are 3 posts that you should do pretty quickly after you start a new social media account. And the first one is to introduce yourself and your farm. And it's really up to you how much you want to include about this. But remember, the whole point of social media is to make that connection with a prospective consumer or someone who already is one of your clients, and to just further reinforce that client relationship. In a second post, you can describe your operation. And this is something I think that most farmers could talk about endlessly. So describing what you do, what type of vegetables or animals you produce, why you do it that way, how you got started doing it, why you love farming, things like that, goals you have for your farm. All of that is really interesting to consumers. And you might think, oh, they don't care, they just want to buy my product. But I'd say by and large, that's not true, and that the general public is really curious about what you're doing. And then finally, in a third post, introduce your products and where they can be purchased. If someone wants to buy your eggs, where do they go? How do they do that? What do you have in season? What's your production schedule? That's really important, because then it gives them easy information on, okay, I really like this farm, I want to support them. How do I go about doing that? And I've got an example for you here about a very simple, straightforward way to introduce yourself. Again, this is a fictitious farm I made up, but let's say that this dairy started a new social media account on Instagram, converted to a business page, and they wanted to introduce themselves. Here's something really simple that they could say. At Daisy Meadows Creamery, we have a herd of 30 Nubian dwarf goats that provide the milk for our cheeses. My husband and I met during college, and we're both animal science majors. It was always our dream to start this farm, but we both worked various desk jobs before deciding to take the leap. We hope to expand the goat herd in the next few years and to start selling our products in restaurants and grocery stores throughout the entire state. We have a few wonderful university students who help out on the farm during the weekends. So pretty straightforward. It doesn't have to be a novel, doesn't have to be anything super sophisticated. It's just, who are you? Why did you get into farming? What's your farm all about? Next slide. So we have a workbook that we created that touches on a lot of these pointers, and we'll walk you through how to set up an Instagram account as well as a Facebook account. And there's a link where you can find a PDF version of this workbook, but we're also happy to send you a hard copy. And there's lots of space in the workbook to plan out posts, to write down notes. There's a few social media planning calendars that you can pull out and use, or you can print off pages on the PDF version. But if you'd like a hard copy, just contact us with your address and your telephone number, and we can ship that out to you. And we'll show this link for the workbook download at the end of the presentation. Next slide. So once you've got a few posts, and something to think about doing on a regular basis is to engage with other users. As Luke mentioned, that algorithm is really important, and the more you use Instagram, the more you're going to get out of it. And this doesn't have to be really complicated. When I'm filling water or doing basic things around the farm or kind of just waiting on a customer to do a delivery, I usually hop on Instagram and just scroll through and just start liking posts. And we follow a lot of other farmers. We follow a lot of chefs and restaurants in the area. We follow a bunch of different people who might have some interest or relation to what we do. And so as you scroll through, all you have to do is tap that little heart button or double tap on the photo to like it. And if you feel really bold, starting to get comfortable, you can start commenting on other users' accounts. You can start commenting on your customers who prepare your food and post pictures of it saying, oh, you know, here's my CSA box, here's what I made with it. Go and post a comment and say, that looks great, thank you for supporting us. It doesn't have to be anything over the top, but that really helps Instagram pick up your account and boost you when it comes to that algorithm. Next slide. Something we do quite a bit also is tagging people in posts. And this is really similar to how you do it on Facebook. You just hit the @ sign and then start writing the person's username. We've got a lot of great chefs who send us pictures of their dishes that include our meat, and they always look so beautiful, better than I could ever plate it at home. And so whenever they do that, I post it and I make sure to tag that restaurant, tag that chef, and this increases our exposure for their audience as well. And it also helps support the community. We couldn't do what we do if we didn't have chefs like this who continually purchased our meat. So it's kind of our way to help promote them as well. Next slide.
All right, this is Luke here again, and I'm going to talk for a little bit about advertising on Instagram. So we've talked about strategies for organically reaching a new audience, organically ensuring that people can see your posts. But there are some options for spending a little bit of money to boost posts or advertise to help grow your audience that way. So the first step with advertising on Instagram is to have a business profile on Facebook, which is something we've been talking about. You're actually going to use the Facebook Ads Manager to create an ad. And you can see the URL at the bottom of the slide here, but it's the same ads manager you use for a Facebook ad, but you just choose for the ad to show up on Instagram. Another option is to promote a post through the Instagram app, and this is by far the easiest option. And if you're wanting to get started, spending a little bit of money on marketing on Instagram, I would suggest you start with promoting a post. So the way you do that is you choose a post that you've already posted on your Instagram feed, and with the business profile, there's going to be a little blue button under that image that says promote. So you'll just click on that button. Next slide. And from there, it's going to prompt you to set a goal. So you want to keep in mind that the photo you choose to promote, you want it to be a photo, an image, or a video that has done well on your Instagram feed, but with a little extra money, you think you can reach new customers. And so you're going to choose a goal of either more profile visits, so that's people actually looking on your profile on Instagram, more website traffic. So if you have a web address for your farm, your goal could be to get people to go to that website, or more promotion views. So in this case, I chose more website traffic as the goal. So I want people to visit our website, freckled-hen.farm, to learn more about where they can find our pasture-raised eggs. So after you choose your goal, then you choose an audience. So in this case, I set the location as our general store in Fayetteville, and then I chose a radius of 7 miles. So I'm targeting a local audience, and this 7-mile radius, this is wide enough that I believe people would be willing to drive in to Fayetteville to pick up eggs at our store. age and gender. In this case, I selected an age of 25 to 45. So Instagram, as I mentioned before, does skew younger in audience. So that's why I set the upper range of the age at 45. For Facebook, I would do 25 to 55, but Instagram, I would do the 25 to 45 age range. And then choosing female as the gender. Even though there might be some men who buy products from your farm, by far it's women who shop for food products, local products, and so you're just going to get more bang for your buck by just targeting women. And then lastly, it's going to prompt you to set a budget. And so you get to choose the budget for your promotion. It can be as little as $5 and as much as you want. I would recommend starting with a small amount, somewhere between $5 and $20 for a few days to a week. See how it does and then go from there. Next slide. So to give you a little more demographic data to help you choose the demographic selection for a targeted ad or promoted post. So studies on farmers market customers have found that most farmers market customers are between 25 and 54. Majority of them are female. And the reason most farmers market customers give for shopping the farmers market is because of product quality. So a tip there would be to really highlight the quality of your product. If your promotion is trying to sell your product, really focus on how your product is different than what they could find at the grocery store. Also, another tidbit here is that most farmers market customers live between 6 and 17 miles from the market. So when you're choosing the geographic region for your targeted audience, you definitely want it to be within 17 miles of the market where you're selling your product. Next slide. So then how do you know if it's working? So if you create either a boosted post or a targeted ad, you can go to the ads manager, the Facebook ads manager, and look at cost per result, which you can see I've circled that column in the screenshot. So that's going to show you how much you've paid per result. So that result could either be profile views or website views. And the cost per result target for you is really going to depend on what you're selling, what your goal is. If you're selling your CSA shares, you could probably afford a higher cost per result, higher cost per sell. But if it's just getting people to view your profile, follow you, you'd want that to be probably closer to 20 cents. Another thing you can look at in the Instagram app is just looking at Instagram Insights. So for any of your posts, whether or not you've boosted it or not, you can actually click on Insights under that post, and you can see how many likes you've received from that post, how many comments, how many people have saved that post, how many actions were taken. So, I mentioned that you want to choose a Facebook or an Instagram post that has done well on your feed if you're going to promote it. So this is a way for you to check to see how well your Instagram post is done before you choose to put a little money behind it and boost it a little more. Next slide. Then another option for you, this is getting more into advanced uses of Instagram, is you can actually sell products directly through Instagram. So online sales might not work for every farm, but if you're already shipping out orders or offering pre-orders, or you already have a website for your farm where people can order product from you, this would be a good option. So like these other options we're discussing, you need a Facebook business account to sell product on Instagram. But what it allows you to do is either tag products in photos, like you can see from this screenshot, or add a product link in Instagram stories. And generally, it just makes it easier for customers to order your products by essentially, buying something directly from the Instagram app. Next slide. So if you want to get started selling products online, first you're going to have to set up an e-commerce website. There are a lot of different options here, most of which cost anywhere between $20 to $30 per month. So it needs to be something where you can really see significant revenue coming from online sales to justify the cost of an e-commerce platform. But I've listed several options here. Shopify and Squarespace are two platforms I have experience using. I used Squarespace to set up an e-commerce site for our farm, which you can see a screenshot here, and had great experience with that. But all these options can work for you. So I would just recommend you checking these out yourself and comparing their capabilities. Next slide. So then after you have an e-commerce website, you can list products on Facebook. And there's a shop link under your profile image, left-hand column on Facebook. So what you're going to need to do in most cases is actually list these products on your Facebook before you can then tag them on Instagram. So you want stunning photos, good product descriptions, clear instructions for shipping or pickup. You have your prices there. And then once you list your products on your shop on Facebook, then you can go ahead and tag them on Instagram. So next slide. And then what that looks like is you either have a buyable tag. So you have a photo with some of your farm products. When someone clicks on that photo, then that tag will expand, showing them what the product is, how much it costs. They can click on that and then buy the product. But also you can add a buyable link to Instagram stories. And this is something that Lauren was talking about, having a link on your Instagram stories. So that buyable link, it can be a link to a product. So it could link to your e-commerce site for them to buy a product from you or sign up for a CSA share. But you could also add a link just to your farm website. You could add a link for people to sign up for your e-newsletter. So there are a lot of capabilities there. And all of that is unlocked by having a business profile on Instagram. Next slide.
Okay, we're going to wrap up by briefly discussing some tools you can use to manage multiple social media accounts. If you get to the point where you have a Facebook, you have an Instagram, let's say you've got Twitter, you've got Pinterest, you're really going on all cylinders, it can get pretty overwhelming, and some people burn out on social media pretty quickly. And even if you only have 2 accounts, I would suggest looking into some of these tools. So as social media has gotten really popular for marketing in any industry, some companies have created ways to streamline how you post, when you schedule posts, what type of analytics you get. And there are many, many different services available online. You could even just Google social media management tool and you could probably get 100 different results. It can be very overwhelming. And some of them are super advanced, whereas others are very streamlined. So just kind of have that caution in mind. Don't get lost in the weeds. Remember that you're doing social media to make your business better, not to give you a headache. So if at any point you start feeling really stressed out or like, you don't understand what you're doing or it's too much, take a few steps back. That's totally okay. You might have to play around with social media until you really hit your rhythm. Next slide. So a very simple user-friendly service that I recommend to people who are interested in starting to do social media management is Buffer, and you can find it at www.buffer.com, and it's really user-friendly and intuitive. And all you have to do is log into the social media platforms that you want to streamline through Buffer, and it's pretty self-explanatory from there. You can schedule posts, you can just draft one post with a picture and schedule the time you want it to post, and Buffer will automatically post it to Facebook, and it'll send you a notification on your phone about when you need to go ahead and post it on Instagram. But the nice thing is that the post will be already drafted and ready. So it really takes, 10 seconds, open your phone, hit the post button, and you're done. So if you're going to have a really busy week, it can be good to sit down and kind of do your daily posts ahead of time. Or if you want to take a bunch of pictures over a series of days where you're doing something huge at the farm and then kind of post a series of photos and explanations of what you did, that can be a really fun way to use it also. I like to kind of post everything on a schedule because that way when I'm running around and busy, I don't really have to worry about, oh shoot, did I post today? What am I going to talk about? Something you do have to keep in mind with this is that you need a steady flow of things to talk about and content and pictures. And this is something that people start to get frustrated with because they run out of ideas on what to post. The workbook that I mentioned has a whole section with over 25 different subject areas and examples of things you can post about that consumers are really interested in. And you'd be surprised some of the things that qualify as a really good post that's going to get a lot of decent engagement. Next slide. So here's a few other really common ones that are pretty simple and streamlined. Sprout Social, Hootsuite, Birdeye, Tailwind, and Later. Most of these offer a free service with an optional paid upgrade. So if it starts asking you for your credit card information, make sure you know what you're signing up for. And I would suggest just using a free service to see if this is even something that works for you before you start subscribing. Next slide. So again, here's the link to that workbook, and if you'd like a hard copy, just send us your address and your phone number, and we'll send that out to you. It's got lots of step-by-step graphics on how to set up Facebook, a Facebook business page, Instagram, ideas on what to post, how to deal with people who comment negatively on your social media, the professional way to handle that, branding, all sorts of different things. A really useful workbook, and I'll let Luke talk to you about Atra Publications.
Yeah, so our Atra website, atra.ncat.org, has over 400 publications on sustainable agriculture topics, including farm marketing and social media tools. So I definitely recommend you check out the website if you haven't been to Atra, see what we have to offer. And then again, all of these webinars are recorded and posted on our video page on the Atra website, so you can watch them after the fact. Next slide. And if you'd like to get in touch with one of us Atra specialists, you can email us at askanag@ncat.org. We'd love to hear from you. Or give us a call at our hotline. You can see the toll-free numbers below. You can either call the English or Spanish hotline. Again, we're here to help. We'd love to talk with you if you have questions on social media marketing for your business or any other topics related to sustainable agriculture.
Yes, thank you, Luke and Lauren, so much for all of that wonderful information. We'll now take a few moments and answer some questions that have come in. So if you have any questions about Instagram or social media use, you can type those into your questions box, and we will answer as many as we have time for. One question that has come in, and Luke, you can address this. Could you explain again why, in your example, you limited the upper age for ads and promotions, thinking that there are, older folks who might be on Instagram who would be interested in your farm and your farm products? So why exactly did you limit the age?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, because we're paying for those targeted ads, we really want to make sure that the audience we're targeting has a higher likelihood of actually, buying our product or following us. And, I spent some time looking at my audience insights on Instagram, and 77% of my audience were ages 25 to 44. So, I just can see that really is that target demographic for my Instagram profile. Yes, there might be some 55, 65-year-olds on Instagram who might be good customers, but it's just much more likely that women between 25 to 45 are going to be more likely to actually buy products from us or follow our Instagram page. So that's the reason why.
Okay, thank you. Another question, and I'm not sure which one of you wants to answer this one, but is it redundant or poor form to post the same message on Instagram and Facebook? Or what, I know, Lauren, you said you post both to the same thing. So what, why would you do that, or why not?
I don't consider that redundant. I think it's consistent brand messaging. And not everyone who follows us on Facebook also follows us on Instagram, and vice versa. As Luke pointed out, it's a very different audience. And you might post something on Facebook, and even if they also follow you on Instagram, they might not see it when they log on to Facebook. So I don't think that's bad form at all, especially when it's so easy to share things from Instagram to Facebook, and when that's really realistically what a lot of people do anyway. So don't hesitate to do that.
Okay, thanks. Lauren, I think this would be a question for you. I had a person set up an Instagram account with the login name of our company using the email address. Can I still use the same info for the business Instagram account? We do not have any postings on Instagram. So could they use the same information and email for a personal and a business account, or would they need to convert that personal account to a business account?
You can use the same information. The only thing that has to be different is the username, I believe. And keep in mind too that you're going to set up a very basic account for your farm business, and then it just converts to a business account. So it's not like you're creating a third business account for the farm. So, and even if you can't use that same information, it's really easy to set up a very simple email address on Gmail, and then have that Gmail email forward anything to your business email. I know that sounds a little complicated, like multiple steps, but if you do get to a situation where Instagram says, no, we need you to have a completely different login, it's not the end of the world, and there's ways that you can navigate around it.
Great, thanks. A couple of more questions. Here's one, and it's a more general social media question. And the question is, do you really have to have a website, or why can't you just simply use Facebook and Instagram? So maybe Luke, you want to address that?
Yeah, and it's not necessary to have a website. We talked about this in our Facebook webinar, that Facebook can really be an adequate stand-in if you don't have a farm website. It's a great place to have your farm contact information, your address, phone number, email. So that Facebook page alone can be, your main point of contact with customers. I would say having a website for your farm definitely gives it a more professional look. I would say that it would be something to consider to look into, but it's definitely not required. And we talked about having your website on your Instagram profile, but that's not necessarily a requirement.
A follow-up question, can you put a link to your Facebook profile as your Instagram web address? Is that allowable, or does it have to be a website? Or do you know?
Do you know that, Lauren? I haven't.
I'm not sure. I mean, worst case scenario, put it in there, and if it rejects it, it rejects it. But I think the way it's formatted, it's going to look for the classic www.domainname.com.org.net. I think that's what it looks for to verify that it is an actual website address.
Yeah, but you could try putting in www.facebook.com/ then your farm name, to go to your farm Facebook page. So I would try it.
You could also do a post. If you want to direct people to your Facebook, just do a post and say, hey, by the way, we're on Facebook too. Follow us here.
Great idea. Another question, Luke, this is probably for you. What sort of support does Instagram and Facebook offer if hiccups occur with shopping through those websites? Is there anything, is it reliable and credible, or do they have anything to do with that, since you're using probably another platform to host that shopping?
Yeah, I have really never had to use Facebook or Instagram tech support, but I think, whatever e-commerce platform you're using for listing your products online, they're going to have good tech support solutions. So I know, both Shopify and Squarespace have really good tech support for their e-commerce. I believe the other options I listed do as well, but they're probably going to be the ones who are going to be your first line of contact if you're having issues with selling products online. I've honestly just never had to contact Facebook or Instagram tech support.
Okay. And I wanted to say that we received a comment that from a listener that you can put your Facebook URL in the website, and that's what they've done. So we know that works.
Great.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So we'll end with one last question. And could you guys both give an example of one of your highest performing posts? So what's something that gets a lot of performance and interaction?
For us, it's baby goats. And that's pretty self-explanatory as to why. But people People love seeing videos of newborn baby, calves, sheep, goats. We don't raise vegetables, so I don't know what the baby equivalent is in the vegetable world. But that's anytime we post something about, calving season starting, something like that, people get really excited.
Yeah, and I will second that. I mean, on our farm, we do have a few goats, and photos of the goat kids are always popular. But on the vegetable side, this 4th of July, Natalie and I harvested some red, white, and blue potatoes from the garden. And so I did an Instagram post with, the freshly harvested potatoes all washed and looking pretty, and had, red, white, and blue potatoes in a basket, and did a 4th of July post about that. And that was one of my most popular posts, definitely for the year. So, theme posts like that, I find that people really love seeing a lot of color in our produce. So like photos of pink and purple radishes, people love that. Sometimes I'll even just spray off the root crops before I take a photo of them. So they're stunning, they're shiny, the color really stands out. That really goes a long way on Instagram. So those would be tips for any vegetable growers out there, but also flowers. People love seeing farm fresh bouquets or zinnias and sunflowers in the garden. People love that. I think anything with a lot of color really stands out.
Okay, actually we had one more question come in. Do you have to have a smartphone for Instagram, or can you use an iPad or a tablet?
You can use an iPad, and I do use my iPad sometimes, but it has to be connected to wireless in order to post things and upload them. And not all iPads or tablets come with a data plan or connect to Wi-Fi, so you just have to make sure that you can get onto the internet somehow.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for participating in today's webinar. As a reminder, this webinar will be posted on the ATTRA website. And as you exit the webinar, please complete this survey. And once again, thank you again for joining us.